You already know that jazz lines consist of arpeggios and chromaticism, but just knowing that doesn't mean that everything you play sounds like bebop. And you don't want to play solos where you're only using copy and paste licks from other people that you transcribed. So instead you want to study some phrases and you want to learn how to hear and create melodies like that so that your jazz lines sound better. And that's what I want to show you in this video. My name is Larsen, learn jazz, make music. Most of us already practice arpeggios and chromatic passing notes, but of course one thing is practicing something and another thing is making great lines with it and using it when you're actually playing. As you'll see in this video, one of the best ways to get better at using it in your playing is to analyze licks and really take them apart and understand how they're made, and then use those things when you're practicing how to make your own lines. So in this video, I'm going to go over a few examples, analyze them and show you how they're made so that you can start making lines like that yourself. And once you start taking these lines apart, then it's pretty amazing how simple they actually are. Now this may seem like a very complicated G7 bebop lick, but in fact if you break it down and just look at how it's constructed, essentially it's just made from two arpeggios. A descending G7 and then a D minor 7. Let's just have a look at how we can start with those two simple arpeggios and then turn those into that line. The first part is coming out of the two top notes in the arpeggio, so the F and the D. And first I'm turning those into a scale run, so I'm adding the E in between. And I want to add a chromatic passing note in between those notes that I'm playing here. Of course, between F and E, I don't really have a chromatic passing note because it's already a half step. So I'm using the Barry Harris trick of using the scale note that's one step above. And then I get... And that gives me this high note. It just breaks up the flow a bit because I'm also skipping around. I'm not just moving in one direction. So that works really well. And then between E and D, I can add the E flat. From here I'm continuing down the arpeggio, so the next note is a B, but I'm adding the C in between and also a chromatic leading note here, which is again not really a chromatic leading note because it's the scale note above, so... And then just down the arpeggio. So what you definitely want to take away from this is that it's well worth checking out how to use the scale note above as a leading note, simply because it's breaking up the flow and changing the direction of the melody, which makes it a lot more interesting to listen to. If you didn't do that in this one, then you would have a line that was like... And that's compared to... The next part of the line is really just a D minor 7 arpeggio with an enclosure. So I'm ending on the F here, sliding down to E to make the enclosure. And then the C sharp under the D minor 7, and then playing that arpeggio. And then just to give the B a slight accent, I'm also adding a grace note there. Now that I'm looking over the video, then I realize that maybe you don't know the Barry Harris rules for adding half steps like that. So I'm just going to cover that quite quickly because that's something that's really useful and you can do a lot of really nice things with it. If we take a look at the descending scale for the G7, then we have this scale. Now I want to add a chromatic leading note in between all the scale notes in here. So if I start on the G, I can add the G flat between the G and the F. Now between F and E, there's no room to go in between. So what I do, as I did in the example, is that I just go up and take the note above it in the scale. So, and then we get this. So that happens whenever we have a half step within the scale. So, and then between C and B, the same thing. And that's really all there is to it. But this, as you will see later in the video, is a really powerful tool. Also just because it really breaks up the direction of the melody. And makes the whole thing a lot more interesting to listen to. Right now it might seem like there are a million things happening in this G7 lick. So of course if you want to make your own lines, then don't try to fit everything in there at once. Just take one thing out and work on that, get that into your playing, and then you can take the next thing and add that to your playing. That process is going to get faster and it's going to be much more efficient because you don't have a lot of things that you don't really know how to use happening in the lines that you're trying to make. So if we take the first part of this lick, then this phrase, and then combine that with some arpeggios like a G7 arpeggio and a D minor 7 arpeggio, then you get lines like this. And And you can even make it simpler and then say that you want to do maybe only this part of it and then leave out the other chromatic leading note and then combine that with a B half diminished like this. And as you can hear, all these phrases work really well, and you're just building vocabulary and making solid lines using one of the things that's found in the first example. Let's have a look at another example so that you can see how you're already getting used to this process and also give you some more material that you can work with in your own solos. You're probably already beginning to see the structures or the basic building blocks in a line like this. So if we break down this, the first part is a second inversion G major triad, then a scale run, a descending F major 7 arpeggio, so the arpeggio from the 7th of the chord, and then 2 notes from a G7 arpeggio. I'm playing the G major triad with a leading note before the first note, so there's an A sharp into the B. And using leading notes for arpeggios and triads is actually something that's really useful. You can make a lot of interesting, great sounding melodies with this. Also, if you just look at what melodies we already have, Monk's Well You Needn't has a leading note before the F major triad, or Night in Tunisia. So we have the leading note before the B flat minor triad. Then we get the scale run, and here I'm adding a chromatic leading note between A and G, so between the 9th and the root. And then moving on to a descending F major 7 arpeggio. And instead of just playing the F major 7 arpeggio, which of course would work, you can do this. Then I'm adding a trill, so I'm just adding a trill with a D. Like this, just to create a little bit more movement and also just change up the sound and the flow in the line a little bit. And finally we get 2 notes from the arpeggio of the chord itself, the 3rd and the root. And notice that I'm not ending on the beat, I'm really ending on an offbeat, and it gives it that sort of typical bebop sound, so bebop. Now you can probably see how it's a great idea to take some of your favorite phrases from Joe Pass or Charlie Parker, transcribe them, and then analyze them and really figure out how they're constructed, figuring out what it is you like about it, and then take that away and try to use that in your own playing. Because in that way you can really improve your own playing, and you can also take sort of the essence of what you like in a phrase and get that into your own solo. Figuring out what it is you want to have in your playing or what you need to get rid of can be really difficult, mainly just because you're from the inside looking out. Actually, this is a bit like a Dunning-Kruger reference, and I'm not trying to say that you're incompetent or that you're stupid. I'm just trying to point out that there is something about learning where it's very difficult if you're looking from the inside out, and one way to look from the outside in is actually to record yourself and use that as a reference. Let's check out another example so we get some more stuff to work with. This lick is actually mostly constructed from scale melodies, and it's a great example of how you can take these tools and then really do a lot with some really simple melodies and still get some great sounding material. If we look at the basic building blocks, then we have this melody, then just a descending scale run, and 2 arpeggio notes. The first part is of course built from this melody, and what I'm doing here is I'm first just adding a trill on the F and then a leading note for the D. So, and just having that trill in there and those 16-note triplets is really just changing things up rhythmically and taking away the predictable or monotonous 8th note feel, which is just a nice way of adding a little bit of variation. The next part is a little bit more complicated. I'm going to split it into 2. The first part of this is using one of my favorite techniques, and it's really just a variation of the very first thing that I showed you in this video. So we have the first 3 notes of the scale run, F down to D. Now I want to add chromatic leading notes in between those notes, and between F and E we don't really have room for a chromatic leading note. So in the beginning of the video I'm showing you how you could take the scale note above, so. But what I want to do here is that I want to take another note, because you can of course also just take other notes and put those in between. And in this case I'm using a lower A, simply because then I get that 6 interval, and that's just a very nice melodic interval to use in there. And it's a large interval, so it's really breaking up the scale melody. So I'm using that, and then I'm continuing with a chromatic leading note from the E down to the D. And I'm actually continuing with adding chromaticism in the next part of the scale run. So I'm using a D flat to go from D to C. And then I want to add a chromatic scale note in between the C and the B. And again, here I can use the scale note above, so another leading note, so the A sharp, and then down to the last two arpeggio notes, the G and the F. So the basic melody that we started with would be this one. And what we ended with was this one. If you want to develop how you make lines and find some more material in terms of triads and arpeggios that you can use, then check out this video where I'm going over 7 examples of some lines that are really using some of the basic but a little bit less used stuff, and also showing how you make some solid lines for that.